Step 2. Discover your no. Spending all your time and energy trying to keep everyone else happy is a surefire way to make sure you never have the time or energy to do the things that are going to make you happy. If you feel like you're constantly being pulled in 1,000,001 different directions and never have anything left for you, it's time for you to discover the power of no, no thank you, not now, and not ever. By the end of this episode, you'll have a much clearer idea of what your boundaries are and how to maintain them. Plus, I'll show you how to create a new mindset that not only makes it much easier to say no whenever you want to, but eliminates the guilt and recriminations that so often go with using it. Shall we dive in? One of the first words most children learn, not long after mama or dada, is no. By the age of 2, not only do most children know exactly what no means, they've already become rather proficient at using it. But somewhere along the way between learning our first words and entering our adult lives, this skill, the ability to clearly and firmly say no to the things we don't want to do, gets lost. And as adults, most people find it harder and harder to say no, and a whole lot easier to say yes, regardless of how they really feel. Does this scenario feel familiar? You find yourself running around, feeling pulled from pillar to post, trying to keep everyone else happy, to meet their needs, fulfill their requirements, and comply with their requests. At the end of the day, you realise you've been so busy taking care of what everyone else wants and needs that you've run out of time or energy for the things that you need. You feel exhausted, frustrated, and resentful. And the worst part? Whether this situation happened at home or at work, the worst part is you know that this isn't the first time it has happened, and it's highly unlikely to be the last. The good news is, learning how to create and maintain clear boundaries in your life is going to change the way you think and feel about what everyone else wants from you, and make it so much easier to actually do the things you want to do for yourself. The first thing you're going to need to do if you want to get better at saying no is to change the way you've been thinking about your needs compared to everyone else's. We're taught that it's bad to be selfish, so in our desire to be good, a good parent, a good employee, good boss, good partner, child or sibling, it's easy to fall into the habit of putting everyone else's needs first and allowing them to take precedence over your own. But prioritising your own needs isn't selfish. It's self-ist. When you're being selfish, you're putting your own needs first to the detriment of someone else's. When you're self-ist, you're simply saying, my needs are important too. Being selfist is about recognising that while you might not always be able to put your needs at the top of your list, they definitely don't deserve to be at the bottom of it. Deciding to be selfist is one of the most empowering decisions you can make. When you are selfist, you recognise that your needs are valid and that they deserve to be recognised, considered, and accommodated. Being selfist is about protecting your needs with clear boundaries and remaining true to those boundaries even when you're being pressured to move them. Recognising that you have wants and needs, and that these wants and needs are not always compatible with what other people want from you, is illuminating. Learning how to put clear boundaries in place and to say no whenever you want or need to is liberating. The next thing I want you to do is to learn to press pause on your response. Just because someone is asking right now doesn't mean you need to say yes immediately. It's easy to feel pressured into saying yes to something you don't really want to do or that doesn't fit in with your plans when you feel like you've been put on the spot or if something about the request makes you feel awkward. If you want to release yourself from this pressure, you need to reevaluate how you respond to a request or demand for your time, energy, or attention. Don't worry, I'm not suggesting you become rude or untimely in your response. All I'm suggesting is that rather than reply instantly, you take a few minutes, hours, or depending on the request, it might even be days, to give yourself a chance to think about the request and consciously choose the right response for you. This doesn't just need to happen when the request has been made face-to-face either. Next time you receive a request by email, text, iMessage, WhatsApp, Messenger, or any other form of digital communication, remind yourself that just because the message was sent to you instantly doesn't mean it needs to be replied to instantly. If you find yourself instinctively saying yes and then immediately regretting it, you need to learn to buy yourself some time. You can do this with simple phrases like, "I'm not sure. Can I come back to you?" "Can I think about it?" "I need to check my calendar." Or, "When do you need to know by?" It's a good idea to build a list of phrases like these so you can call on them anytime you need them. While you're pressing pause on your response, it's important to remember that not all of the requests for your time, energy, or attention will be unpleasant. In fact, some of them will be positively lovely. But just because they aren't bad ideas doesn't mean that there's something you have to say yes to right now. Even things that you might ordinarily enjoy can feel like a chore if the timing isn't right or if they're being demanded or expected rather than suggested. The third change I want you to make is that when someone says jump, stop saying how high. Just because someone is asking you to do something for them doesn't mean you need to drop everything and do it for them right away. Just because it might be ideal for them to have your attention or energy immediately doesn't mean that you always need to make yourself available immediately. And if you're worried that people might think you're being mean or not being nice, let me share a little story about someone who showed me how to manage this approach perfectly. It wasn't some self-help guru, award-winning entrepreneur, or high-profile mentor of mine. It was my local dry cleaner. If you have ever dropped off your clothes for dry cleaning, you'll know that it's common to be asked, "When do you need it back by?" And I don't know about you, but if they offer next-day service, I almost always say, "Tomorrow." Or at least I did until I moved house, changed my dry cleaner, and noticed something different and rather impressive about their approach. I want to clarify something. When I was asked and answered that I needed the clothing tomorrow, it wasn't actually that I needed them then. I just wanted them to be ready for when I did need them, when I was ready to collect them. This was rarely the next day and almost always whenever it next happened to be convenient for me. Now, dry cleaners all around the world might be blacklisting me on account of this confession, but if not the dry cleaner, I'm sure you can still find a similar example in your own life, where you accepted a speedy service because it was offered, not because you actually needed it. The first time I visited my new dry cleaner was a Monday. As I dropped off my clothes, the guy serving me said, "We can have this ready by Thursday. Does that work for you?" I have to admit, at first I was a bit taken aback. Where was my next day's service? But the guy was super nice and smiley, and I stopped and thought about his question. Did Thursday work? There wasn't anything in the pile of clothes that I'd handed over that I needed back before Thursday, so I agreed and he gave me my ticket, and that was that. But as I walked away, I couldn't stop thinking about how smart his approach was. If I'd said, "No, that doesn't work, I need it tomorrow," or for that matter tonight, he would have met my requirements. I know this for sure because he did on several occasions. But when I said jump, or in this case, "Here's my dry cleaning," he didn't say, "How high?" He said, "Sure, I'd love to jump. Will Thursday work for you?" And in doing that, in meeting my needs at a time that worked for him, his schedule, and his resources, he also freed up his company's time and resources to better serve those customers who did have an urgent request, all while not wasting their time and energy providing a quick turnaround to someone who didn't really need it. So what does all this mean? Other than perhaps I should read the labels when I shop and buy a few less items that say dry clean only. In all seriousness, I think there's a hugely important lesson for everyone here, and that is, people will only think you're at their beck and call if you let them. Whenever someone says jump, whatever their version of jump might be on that particular occasion, you have a choice. You can say, how high? Put your wants and needs to the side, drop whatever you're doing, and meet their needs. Or, if it's something you do want to take on, you can remember my dry cleaner and say, sure, I'd love to help. How does Thursday? Or whatever day and time it is that works best for you. If that doesn't work for them, they can let you know. But more often than not, when presented with this approach, people usually agree. If you can see how this approach might work in your personal life, but you're wondering how you might apply it at work, I've got you covered. You'll find some work-based tips for what I call the I'll jump on Thursday strategy in the accompanying workbook available for free at mindsetmakeover.me. The next mindset shift I want you to make is to realise that you don't have to say yes just because you don't have a reason to say no. Because I don't want to is a perfectly valid reason to say no, not now, or not ever. You don't need to justify your decision or defend your position. One of the most common reasons why so many people feel overwhelmed and unable to say no to all the things everyone else wants them to do is that they're not clear about their own needs or priorities. They don't know what they want. Most people have a much clearer idea about where they would like to go on holiday than what they would like to do with their life. They don't have a clear vision or intention. They don't set goals, and they go around in circles instead of moving forward. But a lack of clarity about what you really want and what really matters to you doesn't just affect your big picture. It impacts your day-to-day life too. If you don't know what you want out of your days or your weeks, then it's very easy to bend and flow with whatever anybody else wants from you instead. So now that you know how to say no, I want to talk about some of the uncomfortable things that might come up when you say no: criticism, judgment, and guilt. It may come as a surprise to you, but other people's reactions aren't your responsibility. When someone wants your time, energy, or attention, it's natural for them to feel disappointed if they don't get it. And it's understandable that people might not like it if you say no to their requests. But saying no is your prerogative. It's your choice. And their reactions? Well, they're about them, not you. Being challenged on your decision to say no can feel uncomfortable, but the uncomfortable feeling that comes with being made aware of someone's disappointment in your decision is completely separate from being comfortable with the decision itself. It's important that you don't confuse the two. Make your decision calmly and clearly, and then stick to it firmly. In life, we need to teach people how we want to be treated. So if you give up or give in after a little pressure, people will learn that pressuring you is the best way to get what they want. If you are strong and clear in your no, they will quickly learn that you know your mind and they are wasting their time trying to change it. If you are challenged on your decision, try saying, I understand my decision is disappointing to you, but I am comfortable with it. I love the use of the word comfortable here. It's a very respectful word. You're not saying, you're unhappy with me, but I don't care. Nor are you saying, too bad, so sad. Most importantly, you're not apologising. You are simply acknowledging their disappointment while holding firmly to your position. No matter how much you care about someone, they're not going to be happy with you all of the time. But keeping them happy isn't your responsibility. When you say no, the person making the request of you might not like it, and they might make their feelings known through their actions or their words. But it's up to you to decide if you're going to take their feelings on. You get to decide if you're going to allow their feelings to affect the way you feel about yourself. If you find yourself in this situation, say to yourself, I am comfortable with my choices. Then consciously decide not to take on anyone else's feelings as your own. When you say no and someone is disappointed, that is simply their reaction, not your responsibility. Lastly, if you want to discover your no, you need to make sure that you don't let your feelings rule your decisions. People tell me all the time that they felt like they had to say yes, that they felt like they just couldn't say no, and that if they did, they would have felt too guilty. Before we finish this episode, I want to quickly shift your mindset on this so you can let go of your fear of judgment, your sense of obligation, and what I call the disease to please forever. If you find yourself thinking that you need to do something you really don't want to be doing, before you answer yes out of guilt or expectation, ask yourself, why? Why do you feel like you need to be doing it? Of course, some of our have-tos are non-negotiable. If we have a job, we need to turn up if we expect to get paid. If you have children, you need to feed them. And you need to pay your electricity bill if you don't want the lights to get turned off. But outside of these absolutes, most of the things we say we have to do or that we'll feel bad or guilty about if we don't is because of an expectation, a social expectation or a self-expectation. I talked in episode 1 about all those coulda, woulda, shoulda dreams that might have come from your environment, upbringing, or other aspects of your social conditioning. But goal setting and life planning aren't the only places expectations show up. You can find yourself feeling pressured or obligated to live your day-to-day life a certain way. Over time, these expectations start to become a part of how you think things should be, regardless of how you want them to be. Enough of that, I say. If the person you need to say no to is yourself, reframe your social and self-expectations with a clear statement about your own values. For example, instead of saying, I should make lunches every day because that's what a good mother does, say, I am a good mother because I am present to my children and spend regular quality time with them. Next time you find yourself feeling like you should say yes to something, stop and examine why. If you can't find a valid and values-based reason to say yes, then the right answer is usually no. For this episode's coaching session, I spoke with Natalie, a 37-year-old marketing consultant who discussed how she was able to discover her no in her personal and professional life. I asked Natalie to share her biggest light bulb moment from step 2, discover your no.
I absolutely love this step. I'm someone that says yes to everything when I should be saying no. I'm the type of person who likes to accommodate everybody else, and I don't like causing drama or friction, so even if it means that I take a side step in the situation, I say yes when I know I don't have the capacity to take on more clients. I say yes to meeting up with a group of friends when I've already committed to 2 other group catch-ups that week, and it just puts added stress on my family responsibilities. I say yes to meetings outside of my work hours. Actually, the idea that people will think you're at their beck and call if you let them really resonates with me, because in my current work situation, I support people all around the world in all different time zones. And recently I've noticed I'm getting more and more requests for meetings that require me to wake up at 5 a.m. or be up at midnight on a Zoom chat to accommodate their schedules. I've learned that I have a disease to please, as you put it, Dominique, but in this case, I don't have to. I can think of myself too. I can say no, and instead of dropping everything to accept meetings that aren't convenient for me, I need to set up some boundaries. I can tell a client or my colleague that they'll have to wait so I can check my diary and propose a time that suits both of our time zones. I've even realised I do this with friends when they contact me to arrange a coffee catch-up. In the past, I've never volunteered a time that would suit me. I've always just allowed them to suggest the time and then quietly in the background rearranged my day so it works for them. Now, if I don't have time that week, I'm going to say, no, maybe another time, without feeling guilty because how they react isn't my responsibility. Honestly, discover your no has been a real lesson for me. It's helped me reflect on my own needs as a priority. I've even made a list of things I want to do for myself each day, and I'm actively making time for me to do them. I'm really pleased about that.
So to discover your no, the most important takeaways are: 1. Saying no isn't selfish, it's selfist. Your needs matter too. 2. It's okay to press pause on your response while you decide whether you really want your answer to be yes or no. 3. When someone says jump, stop saying how high, and instead, if you decide to meet their needs, meet them on your terms. 4. People will only think you're at their beck and call if you let them, so get clear on your boundaries. 5. You don't have to say yes just because you don't have a reason to say no. 6. When you say no and someone is disappointed, their reaction is not your responsibility. And lastly, 7. Don't let your feelings or your fear of someone else's feelings influence your decision. If you can't find a valid reason to say yes, then the right answer is usually no. In the next episode, Step 3, Choose Your Mood, I'm going to show you how to make every day a good day, regardless of what is actually going on in your life.